Hey Northbound Nation, welcome back to Northbound and Down. So today we're talking about tomato plants, particularly plants that you might have gone dumpster diving for. I've got a whole bunch of them, about probably 15 or 20 here, that I pulled out of a compost pile at a nursery near my house. So got them completely free. Granted, they're a little late. We're a couple weeks away from the 4th of July right now. You know, that's why they were thrown away. You know, they're a little bit past their optimum plant date. But you can still plant these and you can still get a good harvest. So I'm going to show you the best way to do that. Now, granted, you can tell I'm in a greenhouse right now. And so I will be able to get a pretty good yield off these because I'll be able to take them later. So if you're gardening on a smaller scale at your house and you come across someone that has some tomato plants that have gotten too big and they don't think they want to plant them, you can still take them, but one, you're going to need to figure out a way to trellis them, and you're going to want to plant them deep. You're going to want to protect them in the fall as the season goes on, especially if you live in a place where you get a lot of rain late in the season. Like you here, I live in Michigan, north of the 45th parallel, so we definitely have some pretty wet falls. All right, you're going to need a few tools to do this. First and foremost, you're going to need some way to dig a hole, and I use this. This is my kind of my junk drill. If you have a bigger one than this, I do recommend it, especially if you have rocky soil like I do in this greenhouse. You'll see in a minute here, it sometimes gets caught up and it can be kind of tough on your wrists. And then one of these augers, this is just for planting flower bulbs. If you wiggle it around, it'll make a hole that's plenty big enough to get your tomato plant in. The other thing is you're going to need something to trellis it up with. And so these are the tomato hooks that I got from Johnny's. I'm a commercial farmer, so I have a lot of these laying around. But really, any kind of trellis system that you can build above it and then wrap the plant around so it has something to grow up will work. And then you're also going to need a water source. You're going to want to put water directly in the hole when you plant, because you're going really deep and you want water to get right to those roots right away. So, and it gets pretty dry in this greenhouse, so it's extra important in this situation. All right, before we get into planting these tomatoes, I do want to talk a little bit about the differences in tomatoes. So you have the obvious differences of, the smaller cherry tomatoes and all the varieties within those, but you also have the bigger slicing tomatoes. But that's not really the difference I'm looking to talk about right now. What I'm talking about is determinate and indeterminate tomatoes. So what is that? So a determinate tomato is a bushy tomato plant, and usually they set their fruits out all in one go. So a lot of people that do canning, those are the type of tomatoes that you're canning, because you get one big harvest, once in the year, and then the plant's done. Whereas, which indeterminate will mean that they all continue to grow throughout the entire season, and they'll continue to fruit throughout the entire season too. So you can get harvest throughout the whole year. So a lot of people that grow cherry tomatoes, that's the variety that they'll be growing. So just so you know, you want to be sure that you're getting the right type. Most greenhouses sell, the vast majority of the greenhouses will be selling indeterminate tomatoes, because that's what most people grow in their gardens and whatnot. So, but just be aware that there are two varieties, and if you have a lot of space and you're doing into canning, you might want to try determinate crop. I will tell you from experience that they're a little bit trickier to grow. While they don't require as much maintenance, they're a little more finicky, and the tomatoes, I personally don't think they taste as good. So I think they have a little less flavor, but you do get a lot all at once, so they're good for canning. All right, so figuring out where you're going to plant your plants, it's pretty straightforward. You just want to have an open spot. I know I have some weeds growing here, but I'm not too worried about them. I'll clear those out, and these tomato plants will take over pretty quickly and block out a lot of the sun, so that'll help deter these weeds. This one right here is a pretty spiky one. I went to pull it out and it poked me pretty good, so I'm going to wait until I get some gloves to pull that out. So while you're planting these, you want to make sure that you have a good enough distance. Now, if you're planting them in the style I am, you can plant them a little closer together. So this method will work really well for people that don't have a lot of grow space. While I do have a lot of grow space, I don't want to dedicate that much of it to tomatoes. So here we go. So we're all lined up. It's pretty simple. You just drill the hole and wiggle it around as you go, like this. So it helps to kind of go up and down to clear some of it. But then we just get in here and clear out this extra soil. Okay. Free dumpster, our free tomato plant that we went dumpster diving for. What we want to do is we want to clear out all this bottom stuff. So all the runners and the leaves, all that. This is a Cherokee purple, so this is a slicing tomato. And we'll pull it away. And you can see it's pretty root bound. I just usually just give it a little squeeze. You don't want to disturb these roots too much. I mean, the plant wants to grow. So, and then it's pretty simple. So normally I would stick some fertilizer in here, but I'm fortunate enough to live by the Great Lakes, and there's a fish processing plant not far from my house. And they're always happy to donate their junk fish guts and all the other stuff that they can't sell. And so last fall I came through and I buried a lot of it here. So plus I kept some meat chickens in here, and so there's a lot of fertilizer in the ground in here already, so it's not needed. But if you're planting somewhere where you don't have that done, you might want to think about getting some manure or something and sticking it in the hole, so your plant has some food right off the bat. So after you get the hole, I like to fill it up with water. Really saturate it. Okay. And she's floating up a little bit. And then kind of stick it down in here. And it's simple as just filling it back in. And we have a planted tomato. I really like to pull that stuff off, all the leaves and whatnot that's going to be underground, because that'll form new roots. And so, especially because these plants are root bound, so they'll start sending new roots off everywhere. So the more exposure that they have to the soil, the better. That being said, any roots that touch the ground will also okay, so once you have the tomato in the ground, you want to get your trellis system set up. And you're going to want to give it some support. And so I am pulling one of those tomato hooks down. Here's the string for it. And it's really simple. So we want to clean off any root, any foliage that might be touching the ground. I'm going to leave this one here. Okay. And pull it tight. Just like that. Just a simple loop through is all you want. You want it easy to take off in the fall. And then it's pretty simple from there. You just wrap it around like so. Trellis it up, and you're good to go. Okay. So I'll tighten this up just a little bit, but you want some slack in it so your tomatoes have room to play around, or else it's possible that before they get rooted in, they can pull themselves out from the wind. So this is on the north side of my greenhouse, so I don't want the wind to catch these and pull them out before they get settled in. All right, so now that we got one in the ground, now we can talk a little bit about spacing. So the way I'm doing this hard pruning method, I can put them a lot closer together. So I'm going to space these about 18 inches apart. And so, yeah, and I'm not going to measure it. I mean, if you are confined on space, or things that aren't perfect bother you, then you might want to. But by the time they grow up and fill in, you won't really be able to tell, as long as they're in a straight line. So I'm going to eye up 18 inches and put the next one in. Right about here. Like I said, you might want a little bit bigger drill than this, but got the hole done, so don't hate on me too much. It's getting the job done. So that's really the gist of it. I'm going to put these all in, and This will be my personal tomato harvest for the year. I'll just use these for myself. I probably won't be selling these, but this is a great way for you to save some tomato plants that were destined to the compost pile, or worse, the dumpster. So just remember that next year, or if you live in a spot where people are still planting, there you go.